Just by show of grunts, can anyone relate to anything on this list? One or more. Can anyone relate to more than one of these things? What I found as a 25-year veteran of fitness in my career, and having done Rossiter for 12 years and talked to many, many people, most people would probably think a personal trainer of 25 years is mostly going to hear, I want to look better. I want to look like the people in magazines, or I want to look like Hugh Jackman, and be ripped and have abs. And like that comes up once in a while, but even if it does, it's usually like the fourth or fifth thing down the line. The most common things that I hear, so many of these things are like culturally just the norm. We just accept like, life's hard, or we're hardworking. This is just the price we pay for success, or to have a family or whatever. And we just accept this as a cost, and we just think it's normal because everybody else is dealing with it, and it's just kind of always there. We just accept it. And we try to work on all those individually. Now, when I made this list and when I was thinking about all the things that really commonly hurt people, I didn't have any kind of specific goal in mind as far as this. I actually had something else on this list. And then I realized they all pertain to this one thing, that medically they point to this as a cause of it. Medically, they point to the cause of it as a relief of it. In other words, removing the source can often improve or remove these problems. Does anybody have a guess, besides people that might have already peeked into your packet or anything, if you know, does anybody have an idea what the tie-in would be from these things? Food. That's not a bad guess. That's not stress. That's it, right? Stress will make that worse. Did it cause it? Maybe, but it definitely will make it worse. In some cases, you could begin having any one of those, or a cascade of those problems just from stress. Stress can start small and you feel just the stress at first. And then the stress comes and goes and you get used to it, or it goes away for a while, comes back. I just live with stress, it's normal now. You psychically get used to that idea, but then physically you start manifesting these things. And you think, well, first I had stress and I have these other things. So it's like, well, I've got to take pills for each one of these things. Well, what if they're all from one thing? So I'm not saying stress is going to be a cure for anything, but if you have it, and you do, we all do, learning to cope with stress, manage, deflect, heal from, learning to properly face stress and know how to deal with it in many different forms, having different tools to deal with it in different forms and times will equip you to manage a lot of the other physical, mental, and emotional struggles that you may face. Just by show of grunts, can anyone relate to anything on this list? One or more. Can anyone relate to more than one of these things? Right? Some of you might even be, unfortunately, facing all of those at the same time, plus you feel the weight of the stress. So the definition of stress is intense, excessive, persistent worry and fear about everyday situations. Okay? So we can imagine that it's intense. Excessive. So it's like, well, what's excessive? What's normal? So that's kind of subjective, but persistent, that's really an important qualifier, I think, is that you're having something that keeps coming back to you. Every time you're in traffic, every time X happens, every time you see somebody, persistent. Worry or fear is the key word here, folks. Tony Robbins says that stress is just our code word in like American culture for fear. That they're one and the same. It's just us trying to polish up something that's not as noble sounding. When we're stressed, it's cool. We're working so hard, we're doing such good work for everybody else, so we're stressed. It's like a badge of honor or something. But to say we have fear and we're afraid of these same situations admits some kind of weakness that we could change if we had a different perspective and approached it differently, right? And the other part that's important about that definition is everyday situations. So we're not talking about like, oh, you're in a jungle and a giant tiger tried to pounce on you. We're all going to be afraid and we're all going to feel physical stress. We're talking about everyday situations, like traffic, like your boss. So the first question would be, well, what's the source? What causes stress? I would quiz you on this, but I would imagine that many of us would just assume that we start listing the things that stress us, meaning that we think the stress is external, right? The source is coming from this person, this place, this event. Those things might have been the environment, the catalyst for that to happen. Stress is actually the source is within us. So you're creating it, right? The source is within you. I'm not saying that you can control stress to the point that you will not be stressed. But when you understand the nature of stress, and you know that stress is something that started and grown within your body, as you'll see, stress is related to your heart. You might notice that your blood pressure goes up. It's pretty obvious. We know these things. Your heart rate goes up. Changes your brain patterns. Your central nervous system, your brain and everything connected to it. You ever been stressed and you get shaky? Or you see somebody who's clearly stressed and they're getting shaky? Your adrenals, so your adrenal system, and of course your respiratory system. Your breathing's going to change, become more shallow, more forced, less efficient. See how we're like looking at this in layers. We're kind of taking different perspectives on this. So now we're going to be talking about when we're stressed versus when we're not. That means, like a computer, we have different settings. Try to simplify this concept. So we're talking about a different state that you're in. Like a state like when your computer, does anybody ever run a high, graphically challenging video or game or otherwise on your computer and it just wasn't ready for it? You didn't have the right, like my computer's 12 years old now, and I run sometimes accidentally a 1080p 60 frames per second video on my computer and it goes, I'm trying, you know. Has anybody had that with their computer? Just my 12-year-old computer? But if you've ever had that, your computer has different states. The state where it's comfortable, what it's used to, and then there's sleep. You can put it to rest. They even call it sleep. And then there's when it's really struggling and trying, and you're like, it's not supposed to be making any noise. What are all these noises? So our stress is when we're doing that. We're overclocked, right? We're burning our CPUs, and we just assume that's normal. It's not. So especially if we do it all the time, it takes a toll, just like it would take a toll on your computer. But the point is that there's different gears. There's different states to be in, and these, mechanisms, your heart, your brain, your nervous system, your adrenals, your respiratory system, are all linked to this. So this is a body thing. I mean, when you're stressed and you have a stressful idea come into your mind, true or false, you can feel it physically, right? Especially if it's with you, or if it's with you long enough or it's intense enough, do you feel it? Like in your body somehow it manifests, right? So you got your body, and now that's created this feedback into your emotions, getting emo, and your thoughts, right? So your brain, your mind, right? So your emotions and your mind. So thoughts and feelings, right, are getting fed by your body, and then that kind of perpetuates. Well, how are you ever going to stop that if it feeds itself? So you're feeling stressed. You're feeling stressed emotionally. You're thinking stressful thoughts. It self-perpetuates. Now you've got a cycle. So what's the way through that? Well, the awesome answer is, in the truest sense of a hack, you can actually trick this and reverse it. It's like double Dutch ropes. You just jump in at the right time. If it's too physical, you go to the mental side of it. If you've got too many mental thoughts and too many emotional feelings, you trick the physical side of it and you reverse all that. And your body believes it, and then your brain believes it. And you're like, why do I feel better? It doesn't matter. The goal is to feel better. So this is a part where I've got to pause and say, don't justify feeling bad. That's one of the first things that's kind of weird in our nature that seems to be really common, which is, in other words, we want to justify to ourselves our act of self-punishment for our negative feelings. If we're mad at someone or upset about something, and somebody tries to calm you down and straighten things out, and you're like, but he said they did this. It's like you're giving a reason why you want to be on the losing side of this. So don't justify your suffering. That's not where you want to be. You don't want to stay stressed with your body and your mind just perpetually hurting themselves, right? You want to reverse that. Make yourself laugh out loud. They say laughter is the best medicine. Another cliche that's super true. I don't know if it's the best medicine, but it's in the top 3 or 4, I'm sure, right? Because it's extremely effective, it's extremely efficient, right? It doesn't cost much, there's an endless supply. It really, really works. Has anybody, especially with kids, been around a kid that's having an absolute tantrum and they're so in pain emotionally and they'll never come back from it, and you just do the right thing to hit their funny bone and they're crying and they're like, and they just start laughing? You can turn yourself around like that as an adult too, right? So, and the loved ones around you, but beat it to the punch. You don't have to wait till you're breaking down, right? Just on a daily basis, give yourself your medicine. I try to every single day since probably childhood, find some way to make myself laugh. I love watching things that make me laugh. I love comedians. I love entertainment that makes me laugh. I watch things with Charlie that make me laugh. It's fun in its own self, but it is medicine. It helps to reset that side of you. It's hard to, that's why we do those things. I think that's why there's sitcoms. I mean, we all have stressful days. You go to the end of the day, I don't know what to do with myself. I just feel bad. Could you just put Seinfeld on and you watch it and you're like, all right, yeah, it's okay. Everything's all right. So the box breath is kind of similar. So it's a 4 count in, roughly. You can change the metrics on this if you want to go 3 seconds or whatever, but 4 is a good one to go with. So it's a 4-second inhale, right? So we're going 4 in every direction. 4-second hold, right? At the top of the inhale. And then 4 seconds exhale, and then 4 seconds hold. So for some people, they find